Hey guys, welcome to week 3 of our series, What to Do When You Don't Know What to Do. Last week, just to give you a recap, we talked about tough situations and how can we be aware of how we're responding in situations when we don't necessarily know how it is we're supposed to respond. And this week, we're going to be talking about a new topic in the story of Joseph. And we're going to be talking about the idea of integrity. Integrity is a word that might either be really something that we value, something that's important to us, or it might just be a word that we hear every once in a while. But what is integrity? To sum it up, integrity is basically when we're making right decisions regardless of how it's going to affect us in the future. Integrity is when we're willing to do something right for doing it for the sake of being right, as opposed to doing something right for the sake of what we're going to get out of it. So think about a situation where maybe you have a brother or a sister and you do something right, you do something that you're willing to do to help them out. Maybe they're in a tough situation and you're saying, you know what, I'm going to reach out and help them. If your parents see that, they're going to be really proud of you and they might say, hey, that was really awesome for you to be willing to help out your brother or your sister. See, doing the integritous thing in that moment is easy because we get a reward afterwards. But let's say you're studying for a test and it's tough and you know it's going to be a tough subject and you get into the classroom, you end up trying to take the test and it's going really hard and you end up having the opportunity to cheat off someone else's paper. The integrity thing to do in that moment is to stick to not cheating and to do the test and do the best you can. But the reward for that probably isn't going to be as good as when you were helping out your brother or your sister. But that's what an integrity move is. It's when we're willing to do the right thing regardless of what the outcome is going to be. And so when we're talking about the story of Joseph, he had a lot of moments in his life where he had to do the integritous thing. So let's think about the story. Last week we talked about how he had brothers that were out to get him, that didn't like him, that ended up selling him into slavery, and then he ends up in Egypt. So in Egypt, he found himself working for a man named Potiphar. And he was working in Potiphar's house, he was helping out with all this stuff going on in Egypt, and he was making a lot of right decisions, and he was getting a lot of rewards for it. He ended up being one of the most powerful people in Potiphar's house. He gave him control of everything. But when Potiphar left, Joseph found himself in the house with Potiphar's wife. And his wife actually wanted to cheat on her husband with Joseph. And there were a lot of times where she sought out to try to cheat with Joseph, and Joseph tried to avoid it. And so we're gonna read a couple of scriptures of how Joseph handled that situation. Because what's tough about that situation is that even though Joseph might have found her attractive, even though Joseph might have wanted the opportunity to be with this woman, the right thing to do was to honor that marriage, the right thing to do was to honor his boss, and the right thing for him to do was to do everything he could to avoid that situation. And that's where we pick up in chapter 39 in Genesis. Let's read this together. It says, "But he refused. With me in charge, he told her, my master does not concern himself with anything in the house. Everything he owns, he has entrusted to my care. No one is greater in the house than I am. My master has withheld nothing from me except you, because you are his wife. How then could I do such a wicked thing and sin against God?" And though she spoke to Joseph day after day, he refused to go to bed with her or even be with her. So there's a key thing that happens in this story, in this passage right here. It says that the wife tried to approach Joseph day after day. And so every single day, Joseph had to make the right decision to say no. And sometimes that's what we have to do. You know, there's times in our life where the right decision or the right thing to do might not always be easy to know, might not always be easy for us to understand. So when we find ourselves in situations like that, where we don't always necessarily know what the outcome is going to be, what the circumstance is going to lead to, how do we still live our lives with integrity? And the simple answer is to live our lives the way Joseph does here. You see, sometimes when we're trying to live our lives with integrity, when we don't know what to do, all we have to do is do the next right thing. We might not necessarily know what we're supposed to do 10 steps from now or what we're supposed to do 20 decisions from now. But if we find ourselves in situations when we're trying to do the right thing and we don't necessarily know what that is, sometimes the best thing we can do is just do the next right thing. What's the next right decision that I can make? So when you're helping your brother, your sister, the next thing you can do is, what can I do to help support them? If you find yourself in class and you find yourself struggling with a test, the next right decision to do is make sure that you're avoiding doing the cheating move. You're avoiding doing what you know is wrong and end up doing what is right. You see, when we make our decisions with integrity and we make our decisions off knowing what is right, then we're living lives that we can be proud of. And ultimately, we're living lives that are honoring to God. So think of your life right now. Think about situations that you might be in that you might be wondering, what is the right next thing for me to do? What is that college that I'm supposed to go to? What are the friends that I'm supposed to have? How is it that I'm supposed to be building a relationship with my parents? And I want you to ask yourself, what is the next thing I can do that can be the right decision? What's the next right thing for me to do in that scenario? And when we break into small groups, I encourage you guys to just talk about that. What are the decisions that we can make right now that are gonna help us live lives of integrity in the future?